Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for Ohio, let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for you know who. Wanna go, gonna glow.
Aloha and welcome back to this beginning of the holiday season episode of the Hana Packers Edition podcast. As the Packers have gifted Green Bay fans with a glorious win on Thanksgiving to set up the stretch run towards the playoffs. And if Packers fans thought that the season has been a little bit of a grind or aggravating to this point, it's going to get really interesting moving forward because the Bears continue to not lose and the Packers are keeping pace at this point. Couple things have gone in their favor so far on Sunday. We're recording this Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening. So, some results have come in, but the main thing is that the Packers have put themselves in position where if they get this win against Chicago come next Sunday, they will be first in the NFC North, potentially first overall in the NFC. But beside all that point, we have a big Thanksgiving game to review. And Joe, did your Thanksgiving meal taste a little better after the Packers won on Thanksgiving?
Well, I'm going to be honest. I don't do the big Thanksgiving stuff. I've worked holidays for like the last 15, 20 years. So holidays don't mean the same to me as they do to a lot of other people. It's just another work day for me. But yeah, I was able to watch the game before going in. It was a wonderful game. There was a little bit of fear about maybe the Lions coming back, but the Packers really held them down for the full game. There was really no moment where it looked like the Packers couldn't handle it. Like I said, later in the game, it looked like maybe there was a chance, and we'll get into it a little bit more. A couple guys were getting some yardage that it kind of made you worried a little bit that he's going to break one and the Packers are going to be in trouble. But yeah, it was a hell of a game. It really was. And I mean, it was a lot better, a lot different than what the score shows it.
Exactly. Oh, I know fans on both sides will say, well, this one thing goes a little different than this, whatever. But the main thing that comes out of this one is, and Andy Herman made a big point of this on his game review, is that this game was not spread by a lot in terms of stats, or there were no like deemed a turnover in this game, number of plays ran, all that kind of stuff. There wasn't a great margin there. The difference in the game is Green Bay took advantage of and made the most of their fourth down opportunities, and the Lions, Green Bay either stuffed it or dropped the ball quite literally on theirs. So, yeah, like you look at the games last year, that was kind of the difference in those games last year against the Lions, where Green Bay just couldn't buy a fourth down stop against the Lions in the two games in the 2024 season. And on Thanksgiving, it was I don't want to say it was the difference, but it was one of the key factors. But, I'm not going to go too much farther because that'll get into our talking points. So let's just get into the flow of our episode.
Yeah, let me grab my
trusty buttons.
My trusty buttons. If I hit the right one this time.
Fresh cheese.
All right, you want to go first?
Well, I mean, there's the main low-hanging fruit that I suppose we can just knock off the list, and that's Dontavian Wicks. He really stepped up, whether he had shoes on or not, and produced a lot for what the Packers needed. And this is what I was kind of talking about with Dontavian when we were doing our season preview and stuff like that. If he can get his hands to work, he's going to be a top receiver. And that's been the question we've had on him since he was drafted, if he can get his hands to work. So far this season, I don't have it pulled up to what his percentages are, but when he's healthy, when he's out on the field, his hands have really been showing up. He really stepped in. He was basically Jordan's main target for the most part of the game because he was doing what he needed to do. I'm happy for him. This is a career game for him. Obviously, you wish he would have got 6 more yards out of it, but he went 6 receptions, 94 yards, and 2 touchdowns with a long of 30 on 7 targets. So really, there was only one. I can't even remember. It's been a few days. If the drop was on him or if that was just a tight window and it could have went either
No,
way.
no, I don't. He didn't have a drop, or at least not what I would have deemed a drop. I think it was just. I think it was one of those where kind of it was sort of like almost a throwaway, not a throwaway, but like it was a tight window throw for Love, kind of one of those situations. It wasn't a. I wouldn't deem that play as a drop. Like you said, so far this season, one drop. So his drop percentage is at 2.4%. His catch percentage. So when you divide his receptions by the number of targets, he's at. So he's catching 5 out of every 8 balls that are thrown his way, which is a pretty good ratio for any receiver in the NFL. And like you said, I tweeted this out after the game, but Love and LaFleur have made no secrets to what they think of Tay's ceiling in terms of how, throughout his rookie season, he was getting opportunities to make plays. Through all the struggles he dealt with last year, they were working to get him back in the flow of the offense. And, they really did just keep pumping targets to him. And you and I both said it on the show last year that it seemed like that San Fran game right before Thanksgiving was sort of the turning point for him, where it seemed like he kind of got his mojo back. He did feel like he had the yips a little bit through the first, like the second quarter of the season last year in 2024. And he's been pretty lights out. He had that one drop against the Eagles. And, if you're out there, you got to make plays, but you kind of understand if he's a little bit out of rhythm because that was his first game back from injury. But like you said, he was absolute nails on Thanksgiving, and they needed every one of his receptions. They were all key. His first touchdown was on a fourth down play. It was a reception. I forget. It was Chris Long on his show. He goes, "The only people who are complaining are in Detroit, maybe some people in Chicago." He said everyone else knows that's a catch,
It was
and
close. I mean,
it
it
was
really
really
was.
close.
But for him to be able to maintain that, and I was really worried with the way the refs have been all season that they would have just said, no, it's not a catch. But I
And
mean, for
and
him to
yeah,
have it in hand with 1 foot down already and manage to get the other one, that was a really big time catch. So, I mean, I was worried about it,
yeah,
but
like you said, I
I'm glad they
I
were able
wasn't
to figure it out.
when I saw the right foot was down before they show, when they showed the reverse angle. Okay, I think so, but I agree with you. There was that like these refs don't know what the hell they're looking at. What are they gonna do? In the back of my mind, I was kind of like, you do owe us because you screwed us on the play before to Watson, where um, Brian Branch clearly pushes Watson down before he turns to look for the ball. We'll get into that when we get into the moldy part of this, but just a great game. His second touchdown, I joked on Twitter that Love will probably be honest and tell you that was like a C+ throw from him. He pulled Wicks away from the goal line and made it a much harder reception than it should have been, but determination and will got him across the goal line there. He had the long seam play, and he was one of the guys with a catch after Jordan had, Jordan was a little off after the start of the game, and then Watson had a couple like dropish plays, and then Wicks kind of came through to, help reset the table and get things going again. And then the game clinching play where, like you said, you can just tell when a guy's in a zone, it's their day kind of thing. And, Branch on his back, no shoe, didn't matter. He went up, mossed Branch, and came down with that reception. So, like you said, just a really great day at the office for Wicks. And we'll just dovetail that into the guy throwing the ball on Thursday. Jordan had an excellent game. Yes, he probably could have had a fifth touchdown if he was. Yeah, and I don't totally blame him for the miss to Melton. I think what happened there, to me, the way I looked at it is he tried to make the perfect throw after getting out of the pocket because I think he was concerned that there would be someone coming downhill at Melton. And everyone's like, oh, just loft it up. But I was like, he doesn't know he has that space. He knows that there's someone behind it. He can see that Jack Campbell is crashing down on top from the second level. And I think Jordan in his mind is like, I cannot get Melton hung out to dry, or worse, this ball comes out weird and it hangs up and the safety can come and make a play on it. I think he thought I'll keep it low if it pulls him to the ground, whatever kind of thing. And I think he just pulled the string on it a little too much. But we're picking nits on that. There's probably 4 or 5 drops amongst other. Christian had the Dobbs game from a couple weeks ago where he had some impact plays, obviously some big impact plays, but also there are several where Christian would like to have a few back. But Love, it's taken me this long to me. And Marisol always jokes, as much as she loves football, that she always jokes with the put it in basketball terms for me. And the way that Love that I've settled on with Jordan is he is the walking embodiment of you miss all 100% of the shots you refuse to take. And does it get him into trouble at times? Yes. You don't throw the pick sixes against the Rams and the Lions that he had last season without having just the balls, the lack of, I don't want to say lack of care, but the screw it attitude, like the screw it, I'm gonna go make a play attitude he has. But you also don't get that fourth down throw to Wicks. You don't get the deep touchdown to Watson. You don't get the touchdown to Wicks. You don't get those kind of throws if you're not, if you want to make an omelet, you have to be willing to break a few eggs. And between those two adages, that's what Jordan's game is. He's gonna toe the line. He's not doing it to be reckless without a bandit. Like that's not his game either. But it's that controlled chaos that he's like always towing the line of and figuring out what to do. He probably could have easily had over 300, maybe 350 yards if Watson's able to come down with a few of the catches, the ones he wasn't interfered on, and if he completes that throw to Melton. But to still have a 4 touchdown, 0 interception game, 60% completion isn't the same as it used to be, but he wasn't throwing many gimmies on Thursday either. Everything was like pretty decently down the field or into tight coverage. And so just a stellar day at the off. And I think just one sack where I don't think it was really his fault either. Like that was the one where
No.
That was the one
According to ESPN, there's no sack.
Oh, okay. No sacks. Oh, I'm thinking of last week. So yeah. But yeah, like just in a had to have it game, you got the best of Jordan, and you can't ask for anything more from that.
For sure. I mean, you could always ask for more, but the likelihood of getting it is beyond that. But I've got to think for a bit that he kind of is in between of Favre and Rodgers, where he's a little bit more cautious with the ball now, but he still has his moments where he's going to just laser it and say, "You go get it." And that, in a way, that's kind of what you want in a quarterback. I mean, don't get me wrong. I appreciate everything that Rodgers did. Rodgers is one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. But there were times that he didn't trust his receiver to make the play on the ball. And whatever the reasons were for that, fine. But sometimes you have to have trust in your receivers to make a play. I don't think the first Wicks touchdown happens if it's Rodgers, because it's not a gimme, and it's not one that, and that's not to say that Rodgers hasn't made those type of plays. I mean, I think of all the toe taps that Jordy Love has done. The one to Wicks was not a guarantee on anything. So, and again, I don't think it happens if it's a Favre either, because Favre had overthrown it and it would have been intercepted and we'd all been pissed off and that too. But, and so I
think the difference between Love and Rodgers is Rodgers would make that throw, like you said, if it was to a Jordy at the peak of his powers, a Devontae at the peak of his powers. Jordan will make that throw to anyone that's in his color. And that's the difference. Yeah.
I disagree on that a little bit, because it would have had to been in a place where he knew Jordy could have got it. That's why we had the toe touches that we had with Jordy or Devontae or stuff like that, because he would have put it. This was just thrown and was like, okay, Wicks, this is your time to shine. You have to make this play.
As they say, like with the pitcher, it's like it probably caught more of the plate than he wanted it to, kind of thing. Yeah. I agree there. Yeah.
But it just, he played well. I thought, and this can kind of go into my next one, LaFleur called a hell of a game with it too. Did he get a little conservative at times? Yeah, but there were more times he wasn't conservative than.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously going for it on. It's kind of funny because the week before the Packers beat the Vikings, they went down and did the skull, in the end zone. Don't worry, I'm trying to work on some merchandise ideas for that too. But this week, they kind of took the play out of the Lions playbook by going for it on fourth downs and stuff like that, which, as everybody knows, that's the Dan Campbell calling card is we're just going to go for it. We're just going to go for it. We're not punting. We're just going to go for it. So it's kind of funny that the Packers are doing things they're finally opening up. You know what I mean? They're finally
yeah,
doing stuff. We know what we are,
yeah,
and we're going to make you pay on things. So I thought LaFleur called a hell of a game. There were some things here there that's like, you could have done that a little bit differently,
yeah.
but
Overall, I agree. Like, yeah, like I think this is 2 weeks in a row that Lafleur has passed with flying colors and like gold stars, whatever. Because, like you said, and what I fully recognize is he won these two games in the exact way that they needed to be won. We talked about it after the Minnesota game that some people was like, you can't look for it. You absolutely have to look forward to Thursday because it's such a short turnaround, and these are two division games that you've got to figure out how to win. And Lafleur, I don't want to say that he went in thinking that he was going to be able to do it in 3 yards and a cloud of dust, but once he recognized that they could score enough points going 3 yards and a cloud of dust, and Minnesota could not. Obviously, the muff punt touchdown sequence that obviously makes things a lot easier. But still, he recognized that Minnesota wasn't really doing anything on offense and that taking care of the football, shortening the game, Jordan's a little banged up. You don't have Jacobs because you're saving him for Thanksgiving. You're down a bunch of receivers and stuff. I appreciate that in that sense. And the weather wasn't great.
you froze a like amazing moment that I think I'm gonna have to clip because you kind of look like that guy from Ancient Aliens.
But as I was saying, um, LaFleur gets all the credit for recognizing that you want to get out of that Minnesota game as quickly and as healthy as you can. You still win by 3 scores. Like we said, it wasn't the most glamorous 3-score win, but 23-6. It's a 17-point win. You control the game. You really dominate almost all the statistical areas, including the scoreboard. And then on Thanksgiving, he's like, I know what Detroit is. I know what Detroit is going to do. And my best defense is to match fire with fire and say that, okay, like Dan's going to treat every third and and less than five as a go for it, or every fourth and less than five as a go for it situation. We saw that a couple Thanksgivings ago where they ran the fake punt that really set on the landslide in that game back in 2023. And so LaFleur is like, all right, like if you're going to play that card, I will play that card too. And I think my offense against your defense is a better matchup than your offense against my defense. And for, we've just ripped our hair out the past few years at how like Detroit has converted a bunch of these fourth downs against the Packers at absolute critical moments where they've been for touchdowns or to continue drives that have led to touchdowns. So be it. Like even the game in Detroit last year, Green Bay had a chance to stop Detroit on downs. They don't. Detroit keeps their drive alive, kicks the game-winning field goal with no time left on the clock. And so,
And before you go on, just to touch on that a little bit, how he's talking about, kind of sticking it to the teams. Just looking at it right now, Green Bay was 3 for 3 for fourth down conversions. Detroit was 0-2.
yep. And that was like I said, it's not the reason you won, but it's a major difference in the game because these two teams played played relatively even in terms of number of plays, yardage. I think there were like 3 plays, 7 yards or some shit like that. And that was that you and 2 of your fourth downs score touchdowns. The other fourth down convert end of game. It gets you to kneel out the clock situation. Also, the way LaFleur called this game, I understand that you can't go, the butterfly effect, all that shit. But for everyone screaming about the whole timeout false start thing, I truly think LaFleur was going for it no matter what. I think he understood that field goals are not going to win you this game. And I think he would have drawn up a play that would have been just, you can't run the exact play they ran because it is a quick hitter. They basically ran it for both the Dobbs touchdown and the Wicks touchdown. Same concept, but similar concepts. But I think LaFleur knew that, like, I've got to get touchdowns every time we touch the low red zone. We can't be settling for sub 30-yard field goals in this game. That's just not going to get it done this week. And so, and like I said, that penalty timeout, Grant, that did not score the touchdown for the Packers. The Packers still had to convert fourth down. Yes, it was 5 yards closer, all that kind of crap, but for everyone saying like, oh, they gave them 4 points. No, they didn't. Like, Green Bay very could have easily still not scored on fourth down, and then you're forget your plus. Oh, it's a 4 point swing. I was like, if Green Bay doesn't score, it's a minus 3 point swing for Green Bay. So, like, tough shit. Them's the breaks, whatever you want to put on it. But yeah, I agree with you. LaFleur absolutely deserves his flowers.
And to add on that,
Yeah.
the spiciness he had at the press conference when asked about the timeout, no timeout.
I see people getting mad at that and stuff, and I'm like, what do you want him to say? This isn't that stupid the values commercial, the coach I touched the ball kind of thing and shit like that.
And
Like,
he was making a joke. I
yeah,
mean, yeah,
it
he's got. We all rag on him because he's so dry humored in that. It
I
was a
loved it.
joke. Get over it.
Yeah, like, it to me, it is up there with the 2000. I think it's 2000 or 2001 when the 49ers came back and beat the Giants, and there was that, like, oh, like, was that a penalty or whatever? And they're asking Steve Mariucci, and Mooch looks at the reporter and goes, bummer. Like, that was his spot. That was like the same equivalent. I'm like, what do you want him to say? Like, there's nothing he's gonna say in that instance that's gonna, like, not piss off a non-Green Bay fan. Every Green Bay fan should have loved it. So yeah, whatever. It's a total whatever. I love seeing that from LaFleur because, like you said, like, we always get the same adages, the same things, the same, which it gets aggravating, but all coaches fall into their, like, the eras of the Jim Mora seniors and, like, with Diddley Poo and stuff. That's over. Like, guys don't come up with creative shit like that anymore. It's like, this is my playbook. And, even, like, people are like, oh, but Belichick. I'm like, Belichick was just grouchy. Like, it's not like he said anything. He just stood there and was grouchy in the post game. So, like, I'm totally fine with it. And yeah, like I said, he's not gonna do the fucking honesty spread it commercial bullshit. Like, no, like, that's crap. But yeah, great job by LaFleur. I get it, like, but that's the thing is, like, some people are like, oh, like, you're just saying that because his fourth downs were. That's not it. We've been ragging on LaFleur for months that it's like, you need to play to what this team does, and, like, you have this defense that you should be rewarding them with multiple score leads so they can go and rush the quarterback. But by being like, oh no, I'm trusting my defense, like, no, you're handcuffing them because, like, yes, they're good, but it's like, okay, we're trusting you defense, but also we only have a 3-score lead for 2.5 quarters. Like, it's like, what do you want us to do with it the whole game? So I appreciate that.
And you said it. We've been ragging on him for his conservative play call. Why do you think they lost the Browns game? Why do you think they lost the Panthers game? Why do you think they tied the Dallas game? The Eagles game. Now the Eagles game is looking worse and worse with the way the Eagles have been playing. It's the conservativeness. Well, now he's not coaching conservative, and you're still ragging on him. It's like, you can't have your cake and eat it too.
And I joke in one of our threads, our Twitter message threads, that at some point we'll do the "why haven't you been doing that the whole time?" Right? But honestly,
Well,
we won't
that's
turn
my
to that
version of it right there.
Yeah, we won't turn fully into the skid on that one unless, like, he reverts to this Detroit game version of himself. But yeah, the main thing is we finally saw it. You can say whatever you want. The main thing is, in a game that truly mattered, we saw LaFleur pull out all the stops, go down swinging, down to the last bullet, all that kind of stuff. And it was great to see. The other side of the ball deserves who deserves a gold star is the most obvious one. It's Micah Parsons for just absolutely dismantling the game. You know, I'll get into it with some stales and some moldy concerns and stuff like
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I I hope everyone understands that like how special and supremely talented Parsons is, because everyone wants to only focus on nobody but Micah is doing something. Yes, you want to see Rashawn, Inigbari, Wyatt, Brooks, Brinson, Stackhouse, Lucas when he's in there. You want to see those guys produce more. But at the same time, the fact that Micah's doing things while everyone else isn't, you also have to view that in the that's what makes that guy special. Like, that is one of those where there is a two-way street on it. Like, yes, you want everyone else to take advantage of his presence, be more impactful, blah blah blah. But the fact that this dude, everyone knows that they should have a magnifying glass on him, the spotlight should be on him. Like, this is the guy. I tweeted after the game, like, it's not just the don't let him beat you, it's the don't let him destroy you. He's gonna win he's gonna have plays and stuff. And like the games where he gets shut out are few and far between. In a game where it felt like they got in Goff's head early, even on their first touchdown drive, I said it. I was like, they are so close to getting bad Goff because, he whiffed on his first three throws. And then the touchdown drive, yes, he had two big completions that converted third downs, but both of those throws were like an inch from being an overthrow, potentially tip pass interception kind of situation. Like, those were not confident throws. Like, both times Williams and Kennedy, they both had to stretch their maximum arm length to pull those passes in. If either of those, as much as we talk about the fourth down situation stuff, if those two passes don't happen, this game is completely different, because then it's like, oh, everything is high coming out of Goff's hand. He doesn't look comfortable back there. He's unsettled. This pass rush is getting to him. But because those two plays are completed, the game takes on the game goes down the route it does. Detroit gets back in the game. It's 10, they're Green Bay is always able to push it back to a two-score lead, but Detroit just seems to be able to answer back. And then when the game gets into its crunch time moments and Parsons just shuts the door in Detroit's face almost single-handedly to certain degrees, that's the mark of a special player. And, like we said, the only concern Packers fans should have had about this deal is if the back injury was any kind of long-term issue. That was literally the only thing. And you can't, like, yes, you can always worry that he could get some kind of massive injury, but that's true for any player who steps out on the field. Like Tucker Kraft. But this was on a Hall of Fame trajectory before getting to Green Bay, and nothing does, unless it's something off field or his career just ends today, nothing else is going to stop him from getting there, because he is that special of a player. This is back-to-back weeks where he is almost like, my dad's a Steelers fan. He talks about it with TJ Watt, where it's like, that's a guy who can just summon a game-changing play almost at will kind of thing. And Micah has that capability in his back pocket. And you saw it against Minnesota. And everyone's like, it's Minnesota. They're not that, that's a broken team, blah, blah, blah. Against another team that everyone's still, not everyone, but a lot of people still have more confidence in going on a deep playoff run than the Packers. Micah Parsons said, okay, it's winning time. I'm going to go and make the plays that have to be made. They're not going to score one more touchdown on us. We're going to put the ball back in the hands of our offense, and that's what special players do, and he is one of them. And that's why Jerry Jones is coming out and lying again about what did and didn't happen before he traded him to Green Bay. That's the reason that all this shit happens, is because he's like, oh, fuck, yeah, we won on Thanksgiving, but Micah had the best game out of any defensive player, so I almost traded him for Quinnen Williams. That's why that shit isn't going to stop, because as senile or whatever you want to say about Jerry, he knows, like, I traded a Hall of Famer. Like, there are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. He can try to badmouth him on his way out of town. He can try to use the coaching staff or the locker room, but he knows what he traded out of town over a money dispute that Jerry Jones himself created. So, yeah, just, and I don't think there will be a point until he's not in Green Bay, or if he just becomes such a locker room headache that it's untenable. I don't think there will be a time where anyone will really say, stop doing that. I can't believe Micah Parsons plays for the Packers.
He destroyed the Lions so much that he caused Frank Ragnow to sprain his hamstring and go back into retirement. So that just goes to show you how Micah has been. Yes, you are going to have some down games once in a while. There's no doubt about it. Everybody does. I mean, look at it. Myles Garrett is having the season of lifetime, and you know this is a rare one. And it's so rare that it hasn't been done since what J.J. Watt did it last, and then before that it was Strahan. So I mean, it's so to see what Mike is doing, and I am going to say this, and I know it's going to kind of rattle, might be a little bit of disagreement between Quano and I, but if we can somehow figure out how to get Rashawn Gary going, it's going to make it even worse for offensive lines.
Oh, yeah.
Because Rashawn, yes, is having some success with things, but he's even still not playing like week 1 and 2 Rashawn Gary, which is weird that you can play
I,
that well the first 2
I was
weeks
gonna
and then
get
not.
into that. I was gonna get into that more in like the stale and moldy sections, but I totally
Right,
agree with
right.
you.
But
Yeah,
I, I'm throwing it here just to say that if we can get that going, Micah could end up having a Myles Garrett type season, or
yeah, and I highlight, and the stuff I was saying about like people need to just appreciate how special Micah is. Is like, I think what's hurting Rashawn is the lack of interior pass rush. Like,
right,
Rashawn is the kind of guy. Basically, everyone else on the Packers is a one direction. I call them one directional winners. They're gonna make one move, and if you don't win with that initial move, they're not the kind of pass rushers that are going to redirect, counter, and win unless there's great cover. And we don't have that kind of coverage on the back end against good offense that's going to buy you time to get those kind of coverage sacks. You know, you saw some of it against Minnesota, but like I said, that's a broken offense. Micah is the guy who's going to win in a blink of an eye off the snap of the ball, but he's also the guy that can take a two-way go and win that way. No one else on this defense has that capability. Like, as much as I love Rashawn, I'm not going to lie to anyone and say that he's that type of pass rusher. Sorrell maybe can develop it, but he's still a rookie. It's not his game. Wyatt, even, he's a lightning guy kind of thing, and like he's just win a gap kind of thing and stuff. Lucas might be able to kind of do it, especially over a guard, but like Parsons is the only one who can summon that ability on a snap to snap basis. And that's why I bring it up as more of like a appreciate how special that ability that he brings to the field is, because that's what makes him a Hall of Fame track player.
right.
And
And I'm
yeah,
not disagreeing with that. I'm just
yeah,
saying that if we can get something going on the opposite side, it's going
yeah,
to make Micah even more dangerous, because
absolutely.
you're not going to be able to throw a triple team out there on Micah
Yeah,
because you've got to worry about the other side, coming at you. So
yeah,
that was the only reason I brought it up now,
yeah,
was because if we can get that going on the other side, then this defense is going to be even scarier.
yeah.
So but other than that, I agree with everything on Micah. I mean, the draft guy in me still hates giving up the 2 first-round picks, just because that takes away from our draft
Of the
up.
draft, yeah.
So
Us just hate watching for the first day for the next 2 years.
I'm just glad they waited until after it was out of Green Bay to do it,
Yeah,
because I would have hated. I mean, I still would have went up, but it still would have made me even more mad to go up there for the
Yeah.
first day of the draft and be able to see a first round pick. Uh, but outside of that feeling, I never really questioned bringing Micah in. Matter of fact, I was shocked by it because it was not
Yeah.
a move that, Green Bay is normally going to do.
And
So I
and
mean,
and
I'm
like
happy
we said,
for it.
and yeah, and like we said, and Gudikun said, the reason they wouldn't do it is because those kind of players don't become available like
Right.
that. And yeah, like you can rewind the tape on the both of us. We had our preseason look when the rumors first came out, and we both said that's cool and cute and all, but there's no way it's gonna happen.
Right, because it wasn't necessarily that we didn't believe Jerry would have done something stupid. It's the what are they going to have to give up to do? We were talking multiple first round picks, multiple day 3 picks. Probably. I mean, the first rumors that came out said they were going to have to throw Lucas Van Ness in there, or they were going to
Right.
have to throw Rashawn in there as a return. But when it came out that it was, and this isn't anything against Kenny Clark, I think we kind of miss Kenny Clark right now,
Yeah, given our current
but
situation.
with the current situation, but 2 first round picks and Kenny Clark, that's all it took. And that's why it's disbelief, because it's like, that's why we could never picture Micah Parsons happening to Green Bay. That's
Yeah.
technically why we could never picture like a Myles Garrett or a Max Crosby coming to Green Bay, because it's like, okay, well, yeah, sure, you give up the first round picks, but what else are you going to add to that to get them? And coming into it, it's like, I mean, even sitting at this spot, even hindsight 2020, I think I still would have 100% done that trade any day of the week.
Yep.
And even looking at it from a draft guy point of view, it's like, yeah, I would have done it. I mean,
Oh
that
yeah.
kind of reminds you of, that definitely has all the markings of like a Madden trade.
Yeah.
And you don't really get Madden trade in the real NFL. So,
No.
with all that being said, yes, Micah's presence on the field was amazing. He had 2.5 sacks, 4 QB pressures. He added in a tackle for a lot also. And I don't care what these talking heads say, there is no questions about his run stopping ability. With his speed and his physicality, he can run stop. Yes, is he going to overrun the run play once in a while? Sure. But you just, like we kind of said with Watson, when Watson was dealing with all those injuries before getting kind of straightened with what they found out in Madison, when you have that much physical athletic, or that much freak athletic ability in such a bigger frame, you're not supposed to have that
Right.
technically.
Exactly.
you know with his playability, he should be more and they kind of said this during the Thanksgiving game, that it's kind of amazing that when he came in the league he was an inside linebacker,
Right.
because that's how he's built, is more of an inside linebacker than an edge rusher.
Yep.
But because of his strength, because of his physical ability, because of his athleticism, he can play the edge, and he plays the edge really well. So it's a rare specimen. And I know this is also hindsight 2020, but it's also kind of crazy that he dropped to the 12th pick over in that draft. So you just got to be happy with it,
Yep.
and hope nothing major happens.
Yep.
We don't want any gas
Don't
mask,
don't become weird. Just stay
no
normal.
hot tubs with people that you shouldn't be in hot tubs with, or what was the one Latroy guy on? What was like 10K cash, a couple
Yeah.
pounds of some stuff he shouldn't have been having, and yeah, don't do any of that, and we'll be gravy.
Yep. Um, Other shout outs. Musgrave had the nice play downfield. Inigbari got a sack stolen by a terrible call, and he had he had the half sack with Parsons.
Which is kind of stupid, because he really didn't do anything but pressure. Micah had him all the way on the ground, just and then
He
Barre
touched him
fell
on
on
the
him.
way down. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The O line overall, the O line played well. I know that there are a
Yeah,
couple minor breakdowns in pass protection, but they have really found something with inserting Belton in at right guard. We were both kind of bemoaning that Morgan he's just not built to be a guard. And it really does put pressure on Morgan to be the left tackle next season. I do hope we get to see him rotated in at left tackle, but I really like what we've seen out of the combination of Banks, who's really rebounded. He finally is looking healthy again. But the way that Banks, Ryan, and Belton are able to move bodies on the interior in the run game, that's what you need to operate on offense the way LaFleur wants to. You need to be able to create north-south movement in the run game so that you can open up the play action pass game. And I don't think it's a coincidence that they've gone to more play action since they've inserted Belton, gotten Ryan comfortable at center. I know it's taken a little bit of time, but I really hope that those three are able to mesh over the final stretch of the season, because it could be the difference between just another made the playoffs successful season or going on a deep run through the 2025 playoffs. So that's a
And
big one. Yeah.
I mean, I would wait for the rotation at left tackle till next year because, we've talked about it. Obviously, they believe Morgan is their left tackle of the future. And I know this has been a common thing about Mafia, as Mafia said that Belton has, projects as a guard no matter how you look at it. But if he continues playing like he does, you might as well just say stay there.
Yep.
Don't mess with anything, just stay there.
Yeah.
Because
You
then
still have
that's
Tom
only
at right tackle. Exactly.
Yeah, you still have Tom at right tackle, and then that just leaves two positions that you have to kind of worry about: center, and then the left tackle if Morgan doesn't come out and play like he should.
Yeah.
Center is going to be
I think Ryan is the kind of guy that honestly Gutekunst should be like, here's a 2-year $8 million deal. Do you want it right now? like maybe he has, or $2 million, 2-year $10 million deal.
$10. I'll give him $10 to stay for 2 years.
Like, I hope that they just kind of thrown that on the table at this point and been like, this offer is there. It'll be there through free agency. But if you want to sign it now, great. And they can even guarantee like $8 million worth of it, because basically do it up kind of like the McDuffie contract, basically, where it's like you reward him for, he struggled as a rookie, has improved the last few years, and maybe has finally found a home at center. But at least you have, at absolute worst, you have a stopgap option. And like you said, the last thing you want to do this offseason, where you're still, no GM is ever going to be completely all in, despite what fans think, despite what fans want. No GM is going to like empty the coffers and fully dive headfirst and go all in, quote unquote, for any season. But you've tied yourselves to 10-1, and the fewer deck chairs you have to shuffle, the better between these two seasons. So if you can retain Ryan, because like I said, I know it's only yours, so 3.5 games at this point, but it's been 3.5 pretty solid showings. The shotgun snapping is always going to be a concern for me no matter what, because this is a guy who hasn't played center his whole career. But at the same time, just the way that they can move bodies on the inside in the run game. And Ryan does see, he's always going to have some pass protection issues just because he's such a big body in there, but he can anchor well. And as long as you can keep Chris Brooks around to help clean up any mess, like, they're going to be able to do things on offense. So I really like what they showed. I still have questions about how good Detroit's D-line is, but Aleem McNeil is back, and he had a few plays where he got a little bit of havoc created. You still have to account for Hutchinson starting on one side of the line and looping all the way to the other side. So there's communication, there's technique there. And I thought that they played a really good game. And, it took a low knee knock on Jacobs to get him out of the game, but he had one of his most efficient days on the ground this season. So you really just want to see them continue that forward going into this Chicago game. And it's really good to see them put together 2 strong games on the ground, because that's going to set the table for what they want to do, especially going into this stretch where you want to dictate terms against Chicago, and then that Denver game in between the 2 Chicago games where it's like, you've got to be able to figure out how to run the ball on Denver, because that pass rush in Denver is another monster in of itself. So that step forward we're seeing in terms of O-line play and production, really need to have it, and it's great to see it against a division rival. So
Yeah,
yeah.
I was trying to look. I couldn't remember what John Runyon got in free agency, but he got a pretty hefty contract out of the Giants. Because I was trying to see what Ryan possibly could get, because let's face it, Ryan has been a starter for the last 2-3 years anyway. But I still think you need to find a guy that's going to be your true anchor at center.
Yeah.
And
And
I
that's where
wouldn't
the
mind bringing Ryan in as kind of like a Lane Taylor type deal, where he's going
yeah.
to be your initial starter. But if you get an Elton Jenkins that can come in and play it right away, go for it. And, I know a lot of people are speculating, but the possibility is Jenkins is back, next year too. We don't know, how things are going to work out. Packers have done some weird shit before with some of their guys that they've held on to them for a while, but we don't know. And he even kind of struggled going back to center. So maybe they do cut him loose and say, hey, we don't have a spot for you. Because obviously Belton's not going to move to center. I don't think he has the ability to play center. And I don't think Elton at this point in his career could make the transition back out of tackle position. So
Yeah.
I just don't think that's happening. But, bring Ryan back for, like I said, on a Lane Taylor type deal, just to, have that stop, like you said, stopgap, and make sure you bring in somebody. Who knows, maybe with the discourse going on out in Las Vegas, they'll let JPJ go and the Packers can bring him in or whatever. But yeah, overall, the offensive line played well. I was looking at it. Belton played 100% of the snaps. There was no rotation, so I'm glad they stopped the rotation on that. But yeah, I can't add any more to that, because we've pretty much put it all out there. I think the only other one that I can throw in there as a fresh, I mean, there's a lot of them. The Packers obviously won. There's a lot of things that you can throw out there. But I mean, you do have to throw Watson in there, because Watson came up big on some things. Yeah, he didn't have the greatest of games when it comes to things. I mean, 4 catches on 10 targets is not great, but he did do
Those
what we
4
need
were
to.
really important. Yeah, I
Right.
agree with
And
you.
the one thing that we've been asking for all season happened, where it was a deep throw. And I had to laugh, because if I remember right, when they were doing the replays of it during the game, Brady said something like, and he put all of it behind that pass. It's like, no, he didn't. There was not even close to all. He flicked his wrist and that ball went flying down there.
He kind of wasn't totally back-footed. The first time he tried to throw it deep to Watson was more back-footed, but yeah, it wasn't like he really heaved into that thing or anything like that. But uh, this game from Watson, it's one of those where when you look at the raw numbers, it doesn't look great. Like you said,
Right.
4 for 10. Of those 6 misses, like I said, a couple were flat out drops that he's got to make plays on. A couple of those were nice defensive plays that you still want to see him win on. And then you have a couple that are going in the moldy bin, like I said, we'll talk about later on. But you have to look at, this is one of those games where, because he's a deep threat, you have to treat him like a home run hitter, and a 400 batting average with like a 1,000 or like a 1,200 slugging, which is basically what he had on Thanksgiving. Like, that's all you can ask for out of your home run hitter. So I agree with you. Like, yeah, Watson deserves a shout out.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned Jacobs. Jacobs had a hell of a game before,
Yeah.
Jackass did what he did. So is there anything else you want to mention before
No,
we...
let's move on before this episode becomes a 3-hour special.
What's this stale shit?
I've been thinking about it. I don't know if I have a lot what I could call. I mean, you could theoretically throw Watson in there as a stale because of what we were just talking about.
I think that the good, like I said, treating him like a home run hitter, he's going to have some strikeouts, but
Yeah.
I think that the big play, the only stale thing honestly, the one stale is I wish he got down inbounds on his last catch. Like, I do think that's one where like you've got to understand the game situation. I know a lot of people are like, it's not easy. I'm like, yes, it is. He caught that ball like 3 steps from the sideline. It's like just fall down, like do the Musgrave and just fall down, like kind of thing and stuff. And like you've got to have the wherewithal. And you can't be the one to like turn upfield into the sideline. Like you absolutely cannot do that. If you're gonna go into the sideline, it better be because you're like clutching it and like allowing yourself to get pushed backwards, which should keep the clock running, kind of thing and stuff. So that would be the only thing that I would really let border on stale there. But my stale, it's something that we broached on, and I'll defend him for the most part, but I do need more from Rashawn. I agree with you. We need more from Rashawn. Like I said, I see a lot of people complain that, oh, he's getting paid $30 million for, to do nothing on so many weeks, blah, 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 all that kind of shit. But on one hand, like I said, yes, he's being paid a lot of money, but he's not that kind of player. Like that's not he's not the kind of guy who's going to be a week in, week out, one player pass rush dynamo. Like he's more of a havoc creating kind of player who, when he's in rhythm and on it, he can mess up a game plan kind of thing. But he's not like Parsons, and he's not paid like Parsons either. Like he's getting paid like 12 million or whatever $1 million less per year, and that difference is the difference in caliber of player. That said, we need more, like you addressed earlier. The team needs more from him, and this is going to kind of go into another one that I have with Hafley, where I understand that the principle is to like not give up explosives, like it's almost like ball possession on defense kind of thing. But to me, what screwed the Packers, everyone's like, there's no passer. What happens is every time they would get up 10 points, Detroit knows what defense Hafley's doing. He's going to take away all the big plays, keep everything underneath. And what happens is that if you look at Goff's pass plays after, like I said, after that first touchdown drive where he has the 2 almost overthrows that become big receptions, is they go almost exclusively play action when they need a pass play. And the way Green Bay operates on defense is because they're making sure that they're being disciplined, they're not going to give up easy yards, all that stuff. Whenever the opponent shows any kind of run action, Green Bay's defensive line stops because they're like, oh shit, is it a run kind of thing. And to me, with this defensive front, when you're up more than one score, you've got to say, and I know you didn't have Quay last week, but McDuffie was having a pretty good game outside of the second drive, outside of the first touchdown drive. To me, when you go up multiple scores, you just tell those 4 guys in the front, go get the quarterback. I don't care what happens if they run the ball. Just go get the quarterback. If something happens, we'll live with the result. But again, like I said, it's a similar issue we had with LaFleur not going for kill shots early, where it's like, sure, your defense is good, but why handcuff them to the heater when you could say, nah, like, Micah, go do whatever, especially against Goff. Like, don't, like, Goff's superpower is being accurate when he's comfortable in the pocket. If you have a 2-score lead on him, don't let him get comfortable in the pocket. Go and attack him. And yes, on a down-to-down basis, Rashawn can do it. If you're not going to produce against the passer, you cannot lose the edge like he did on that one run play. Parsons did too, but Parsons made up for it by getting basically sacks on 3 different plays kind of thing.
And on top of that, Micah's got speed that he can make up if he gets beat or loses the edge.
Yeah. Rashawn, like, he had a couple where he was in the area kind of thing, but wasn't really in the area and stuff. And that's what I'm talking about is like, and Rashawn is the one that's hurt most by the lack of interior pass rush, because to me, I can't tell if they're telling him, okay, because there's no interior pocket push, you have to contain the other side of the pocket so that Micah can do whatever he can to get to the quarterback. Because at times, it's like Rashawn is just like looking for the quarterback, and not like, like, I have no idea, but he's kind of just like, okay, I'm just like mirroring him on this side. And we haven't seen Rashawn make inside move in a month. And those kind of things are where I'm like, okay, like what is and isn't each guy allowed to do at this point? And like I said, I'm obviously got my biases and stuff, but like I said, it's stale because we've seen Rashawn have production this season. We've seen him have great games this season. You know, he had sack against Detroit in the first game when Micah wasn't even on the field. So it's like it's not Micah gift wrapping everything for Rashawn or anything like that. I agree with you. He needs to do more, but really everyone on the defensive front needs to do more. But also, as much grief as we've given LaFleur to this point, now it's time for Halfley to say, like, okay, we played the long game to start the season. We've got 8 wins where it's mostly worked for us. But in those 3 losses and 1 tie, you can argue there are multiple points in that game where playing bend don't break broke the team. And sure, you could have given up an explosive play, but also at the same time, maybe, you know, like in the Dallas game, if you give up an explosive earlier in the game, maybe Jordan has more time to go get a game winning touchdown at the end instead of a field goal at the end of the fourth quarter. So, you know, it's those kind of things where, you know, everyone's like, oh, but like, you know, you're up multiple scores, let them bleed the clock. But I'm like, the way you do that is you score more points and you got to get the ball back to your offense. But like I said, that's picking nits. We'll see how it projects over going into this Chicago game, and we'll talk more about this for Thursday's episode. But this is a game where Halfley, I know what he's been playing towards this whole season, but this is a game where you have to be the aggressor and you have to dare Chicago to have Caleb beat you with his arm. I understand that you're going to contain the pocket, blah, 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 all that kind of shit, but you got to send some A gap blitzes. You can have, whether it's Parsons coming up the A gap, hopefully you have Lucas back this week, but whoever's on the edges got to contain the pocket. But you got to take away this run game and make Caleb beat you with his arm. And we've seen LaFleur change his feathers, be more aggressive to Matt. Like I said, the last 2 weeks, he's really, really played out the games the way they've needed to be played out to maximize the team's effectiveness. Now it's Halfley's turn to play the same game where it's like, okay, we've gotten ourselves to this point. Now it's time to turn over a new leaf and show that we've got another gear we can hit and will hit to be a more aggressive, explosive defense. And to me, that's where more of their lack of turnovers is that they're just sitting so far off and so far back in coverage so often. It's like, how can you force turnovers if you're not pressuring in coverage or pressuring the quarterback consistently? So that's a direction I want to see them change in. And that's why it's my stale. Like I said, most of the things they're doing, you can't complain. You can complain that they gave up 3rd and 15, but they did get to 3rd and 15 multiple times. And there's a lot of good that goes into that. It wasn't as elite as it was week 1, but I was kind of shocked that Gibbs had as bad of a game as he did in the end when you look at his stats, because it felt like he had more than one 18-yard run in this game kind of thing. But then you're like, oh shit, he had 23 carries for 60 yards and his catches didn't really go anywhere either. Like, oh, we did do a bang-up job against him. So yeah, it's like, it didn't feel great at the time, but that part of it worked well. But at the same time, it's like, okay, now you got to figure out the other part. And I'm not saying you have to throw the kitchen sink every play, but do it with a little more frequency to make your bluff blitzes work better, make some of your disguised coverages work better, because it's like, oh shit, they did it 2 plays ago and maybe they're going to do it again because it's a similar situation and stuff. So you got to show, you can't just bluff the aggression every time. You have to bring it, like, and not just in a desperation moment in the game. You have to do it early when it's like regular down kind of thing. That's the part where I need to see more from Halfley.
I wonder, now that unfortunately Wyatt is probably gone for the season, and I said this about Van Ness, but I wonder if it might be better to move Rashawn as an interior rusher just because of the way he uses his abilities.
His best rush was over the left guard this game. That was the one he almost tipped a pass over the middle. So yeah, I agree. It would help to get Lucas back no matter what. To have both those guys able to do it, that would be big. And just to be able to move all 3 of him, well, I guess all 4 of them, because Inigbar has been getting snaps at 3 technique as well. So yeah, being able to move all 4 of those guys around, you're right. The first step, you got to get Lucas back on the field and like really back on the field. Not this like, oh shit, it wasn't a setback, but oh yeah, he wasn't healthy either kind of thing. Like I really hope that they got him out against Minnesota in time where it really was just like, oh, it is just not, it's still too tender for him to play on kind of thing. Really hope that's because they need Lucas back now. Like you said, it's because of the Wyatt injury, they need Lucas back. I also hope and wonder whether this means you get more edge and Quay A gap blitzes because you've got to create more pressure up the middle and stuff. So those are all things we'll see. And yeah, like it starts this week against this Chicago team.
Yeah, other than that, I think if we continue to see the trajectory Rashawn's at, then it's going to slowly start going into the moldy. But yeah, we can keep it as a stale right now. Other than that, I really don't know if I have anything fully stale. I
Yeah.
mean, I have something that could be stale that slips into the moldy. So, I
Let's
mean, do
go.
you have anything else that's stale?
No, play the soundbite and let's go.
It's a moldy cheese.
Giving up 144 yards to Jamison Williams, I think that's pretty moldy. Even though it didn't really come back and bite them horribly, just it kind of goes into what you were saying where the bend don't break and they were giving up this and that. I don't know if that means that our secondary was as shitty as that, but it sure felt like it every time Jamison got his hand on the ball. On top of that, and I was going to ask you about this. Didn't Kennedy like kill the Packers a couple years ago too?
I'm forgetting which short white guy it was, but yeah. Yeah.
The name just seems familiar for the Lions, that it just seems like that, yeah, he had and that kind of hurt the special teams in a little bit because he was getting some decent returns on that, and then he was just finding open areas. I mean, he's not a world beater at his position, but he just managed to seem like he was everywhere at the same time. Let's see, he was 4 receptions for 36 yards, long of 23. Jameson was 7 receptions, 144 yards, long of 44. And I can't even throw Tesla in there because he wasn't great, but his one ended up in as a touchdown, and that was a pretty solid catch for him too. But the pass rush did what it needed. Just for some reason, that secondary just didn't seem like it was there when they needed to be there. And I know you just laid all that out in what you were just talking about. That's why I said this could slip both ways, either be a stale or a moldy, but I'm going to put it here just for now because 144 to one guy does.
Yeah, and especially when that comes after, you come into the game, no Sam Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm pretty sure every Packers fan exhaled when Amon-Ra got injured, and like it's like, okay, like you don't have to worry about that. And I have seen Detroit fans joke that like, okay, did Jameson like really turn a corner, or did he really only do that because Goff had no one else to throw to, kind of thing and stuff. But yeah, like you're absolutely right. You don't want to see anyone have that kind of success. And yeah, you can play it's only 120 yards if Carrington remembers that he has arms, or Carrington doesn't fall down in the middle of the field on that one over route that Williams caught. But I agree with you. I saw some people say like Kamal Haddon, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. I'm not ready to like crown Kamal
Not,
Haddon
yeah.
off of like a half of football or anything like that. But at the same time, yeah, there is something that's just a little, like you said, it's hard to tell whether it's a nagging concern or like a potential like pitfall issue kind of thing and stuff. But it is there, and yeah, like I don't know how to label it yet. So it's to be earmarked. And the concern comes like, okay, these next 3 games, right? Packers fans love to hop on Caleb Williams, this, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. If you allow Caleb Williams to complete 70% of his downfield passes and you make Bo Nix look like a Pro Bowl player, those are like, okay, you've got to do something. And I do think Carrington was solid outside of the tackling issues. but the tackling issues are bad. And when they
Well,
prop
we
up
knew
like
that
they do in
about
this
him
game,
as a player
yeah,
anyway.
yeah. And Westendorf and I were joking about this, where it's like there are a lot of people that were like, we don't care about the tackling issues, like just play it. But it's like you can't be the same people that are like, oh, like Carrington, you suck. You can't have your cake and eat it too on these things. Which of the two evils are you gonna live with and stuff? And I still would choose the better coverage player, but you can't have stuff like that screen pass that should be a loss where, and granted, yes, Carrington was bad on that play. The other four guys who run in on that play and all end up in the same spot, missing Jameson too, that was as bad as Carrington missing the first tap. Like,
And I can't even
yeah,
call that bad for Carrington because he did what he needed to do. He slowed down the guy enough that he should have been able to rely on the other guys to make the
he
play.
spin Jameson the whole way around. And yeah, it's one of those where it's like, if it's any other team than the Packers, it's a, oh, that could have been a 5 yard loss, but it just became a 1 yard loss or a 1 yard gain kind of thing. Leave it to the Packers to have four guys, one runs behind the receiver, and three of them all, I think Jameson caught it on, let's say, the 30 yard line. And like, the one guy runs behind him after Carrington helicopters him. And then the three other guys run to the 20 yard line. And it's like, that's not how pursuit works. You need to create a net around him, and all three of you like. And I think it was Inigbare who kind of like you can see him. You see him realize like, oh, and he kind of shoves Bullard because he's like, you need to go over there, but it's too late at that point because Williams he's already got his footing back and stuff. But you can kind of, I think it's Inigbare who realizes it as they all hit the sideline that he's, oh shit, we fucked it up kind of thing. And you can kind of see him like try to push one of, I think it was Bullard, where he tries to push Bullard back into the play, but it's too little too late. But yeah, like I said, defense is hard in the NFL. And unfortunately for the Packers, yes, they made plays on one of the fourth downs. They got a gift on the other fourth down when Goff couldn't make the throw and Williams should have caught the throw anyway but dropped it. But every time the Packers made a mistake, Detroit found it. And it was just one of those games where, like, every defense is going to make mistakes, but, like, it is the whole you're never as good as you look on your best play and you're never as bad as you look on your worst play. But it just feels like on every bad play, the Lions found it. And it was just like, fuck. And luckily, the Packers offense was on its P's and Q's and it didn't matter in the end because they just scored. And like we said, no matter how good this Packers defense gets, to me, any more excellent they are on defense is just a bonus because this team should be carried by its offense. And that's why you and I are both applauding LaFleur for how he called this game, because he let this offense be the engine for this Packers team this game. And on a game where this effort from the defense has lost them the it's lost them the Carolina game. It's lost them the lead against the Cowboys. And what's it called? The Browns game was so weird. And the Eagles game, the offense couldn't do a thing. But you look at the Panthers loss, the Cowboys tie, and then this game, like those are three like depreciating returns out where it's like you're good for like 85-90% of the game, but those 10 to 15% of plays, like, a lot of people have been like, oh, it's only that much, but that's the margin of error that you do or don't have in this league. And it's, I'd say that in games like this, the Packers are 1-1-1. So you got to clean that up going forward. But like I said, there's more good than bad. But yeah, like it is in that, like you said, it's stale for now, but it's moldy if it goes even one more week kind of thing. And the big moldy I have is the refs in this game. The big one that benefited the Packers was the timeout thing. I'll go to my grave saying LaFleur was going to go for it no matter what. Yeah, he would have had to adjust his play call, but like I said, the fact that they have the clip of him at the end of the game that was like, Jordan, we got two chances, you just got to get one of them. To me, that proved that his mindset the whole game was, if we're in a short plus field position, we're going for it. And yeah, it would suck to have to make that play from the 7 yard line, but I truly believe that LaFleur's like, fuck it. I don't care that we got the false start. We're going for it kind of thing.
And I'm going
Um,
to say this about that the timeout. The refs said that they heard him. They weren't
yeah,
looking for the signal. They heard him yelling and then they saw the signal. So
yeah.
that's what they were going off of.
And it's like the play clock thing where the referee who's going to grant the timeout is the side judge. And the side judge is looking down the line of scrimmage because he has to make sure that all the offensive players, the five linemen, the two skill position players that are supposed to be on the ball are on the ball. Everyone else is in the back. He has to make sure that no one false starts, no defenders jump into the neutral zone, all that. So he, like, everyone's like, oh, how could he have seen LaFleur? That's the whole point. Is that LaFleur is allowed to start yelling. And should LaFleur have maybe been signaling it? Sure, whatever. But it's like, it doesn't matter if he's doing this and not say, because it's there's this play back in 2006 where the Dolphins were playing the Steelers on opening night, and Nick Saban was the coach, and he wanted to challenge a play that it would have been in Miami's favor, but he throws the challenge flag and he kind of like underhand shot puts it, and it falls like 7 yards short of the ref. And then the Dolphins are like, we challenged it, but the ref's like, you should have thrown it, you should have hit me with the flag. Like, that was basically what the ref said, is like, well, like, you threw it so short that it's like, and it like, there's a clip of Saban where he like tosses it like 5 feet in front of himself, and then he's like pointing at it, and the ref is like 15 yards away, kind of thing. So, like, going back to LaFleur, yes, he's allowed to start yelling and be like, yeah, I want the timeout. And, people are like, oh, you don't see him move until Belton's move, whatever. Like I said, I think LaFleur was going for it no matter what. And that did not score a touchdown for Green Bay. Like, I'm sure Lions fans and whatever would be complaining or laughing about, like, like, you tried to save them and it didn't. Like, if Green Bay doesn't score the touchdown to Dobbs on the next play, like, I don't want to say it's a moot point, but like, they're complaining about it less, kind of thing. What they allowed each team to do on defense in coverage was bullshit. Like, absolute horseshit. All the Detroit fans are complaining about the first Wicks touchdown. None of them are talking about how Brian Branch got away with a clear defensive pass interference. And I mockingly tweeted it during the game that looking back at the ball doesn't count when you two-hand shove the guy in the chest before you look for the ball. And then, so you had three different instances where a Detroit defender is clearly holding a Packers arm to stop them from getting two hands on the ball. Twice to Watson, one on that crucial third down before Detroit's last scoring drive. And then the one to Dobbs was on the free play where he goes up and you're kind of like, why is Dobbs trying to one hand the ball? And it's like, oh, it's clearly his arm's clearly being held. The Watson one was the worst one because the side judge is looking at him and sees it happening, and it's like, no call. And then what makes the Watson no call absolute horseshit is you come on the next drive, Enigbari gets a coverage sack, and then you call an illegal contact on Keyshawn Nixon that should never be called because Nixon does not move into the receiver. Keyshawn is standing in a spot, and if the receiver runs into him, that's the receiver's fault because Keyshawn owns that spot on the field. And if you, as an offensive player, run into the defender, that is not illegal contact. Keyshawn doesn't even put his hands on the guy first. He's like, honestly, he's trying not to touch him because he's like, this guy, he's expecting the guy to run a route. And then when he runs into Keyshawn, Keyshawn's kind of like this because he's like, oh, like what? And that's the kind of stuff we've talked about it before. I do not understand why New York does not come and change these calls because New York should be a Rolodex for the rule book. And we saw it today where there was a play I think it was in the Pittsburgh Buffalo game where the ref is literally in the middle of
Yeah.
calling a face mask, and you go, correction, there is no face mask. And the booth is like, New York called in and said there's no face mask, and they're like, yep, there's no face mask. And that honestly pissed me off even more about the Nixon penalty call because it's like, okay, I get that you're not going to do something where you take a flag out of the ref's pocket and throw it after the fact. But in an instance like that, where it is so clearly not illegal contact, New York should be like, you didn't see the whole play. That's not a penalty. Pick it up. Detroit needs to punt the ball or have 4th and 25 or whatever after Inogbere's sack. But yeah, it's that combination of not calling the Watson penalty and then calling not a ticky tack foul, an incorrect foul on Keyshawn Nixon that extends a scoring drive. Those back to back things, those are the kind of crap that are why people do all the like, the league is rigged, Goodell made a call, make all kind of comments like that. It's that kind of crappy officiating work that's why people like have all these thoughts and commentary on the game, is because it's like, you guys clearly don't know your own rules and you have no idea what the fuck you're doing out there. So yeah.
We've been saying all season, all last season, that these guys keep getting worse and worse at some of the stuff that they're calling and not calling. So, I mean, wasn't it this game where you actually see Micah and one of the refs getting into it? That how are you not calling that a hold? I'm getting held every time, and it is what it is. I mean, I don't know what they're going to do about it. They're obviously not too worried about it because they haven't done anything about it. So, yeah, I don't know how much more I can throw into it on it, because it's getting sickening. It really is.
Anything else for you in the moldy this week, or?
Well, kind of to lean into that, Brian Branch, because how many knees are these guys going to take out before somebody actually does something? And, luckily Jacobs was able to come back, and hopefully he's not dealing with too much swelling or anything in that knee, but he's already had knee issues stemming from the Giants game, comes into this game, and Brian Branch like immediately darts towards that knee. I get that you got to take these guys low, and it's a contact sport and all that stuff, but you got to wonder if him and Kirby Josephs intentionally do that kind of thing. It kind of, in a small, minuscule way, reminds you of the whole Bounty Gate type thing, where they were targeting specific things because they knew it would take these guys out.
Yep. I know that, like, Lions fans and stuff, they're going to say like, well, what's he supposed to do in that play? And it's like,
well, that's what I mean.
yeah.
How are you're supposed to go low on some of these guys, because otherwise you're not going to take the guy down. But, spearing
like you
right
said,
at the kneecap.
yeah, like you said, the frequency and the way they do it is where that's where I do have a and like I said, I'm not defending them at all. I agree with you. Like, it is the whole, okay, you keep doing this thing. Maybe you are just a dirty player. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if it was only the first time or maybe the second time, it's the fool me once, shame on me. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me kind of thing. We're on fool me like 42 for these two guys. And it would be one thing if they were just like, no, like, it's the fact that both of them try to play innocent, that's the part that irritates me more than anything. If you want to be physical or whatever, or you get in opponents, own it. Like, man up and own it. But for them to, every time they get confronted with it, and Kirby Joseph, the whole like, why am I not in all pro safety? Why don't my peers like me? Like, I'm not a dirty, but yes, you are. Like, if there's only so many reasons why guys in the NFL do not like you, and it's either you're a terrible person off the field, and even that doesn't necessarily get you blacklisted. Generally, it's the guy, the whole talk of the brotherhood and all that kind of shit. And it's like I said, the biggest one is that these two boneheads are the ones that blew out TJ Hawkinson's knee. And that was their teammate like earlier that season or the year before or whatever. And it's like, it doesn't get any fucking clearer than that. That it's like, I get that he plays for a division rival and all that kind of stuff, but it's like, you were just sharing the locker room with that guy 12 months ago, and you intentionally went at his knees. Like, if you needed a further explanation, there is none, because that play hang it in the Louvre. Like that's why everyone hates you. So you
Well, they
like,
took out 3 different people, right? There was
yeah,
Higbee
yeah,
for the
yeah.
Rams, Hawkinson when he was traded to Minnesota, and then there was one other one, wasn't there?
I mean, there's been way like a lot of people say, but those are the big ones. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, like I said, I would still have a problem with it, but it's the crying about, oh my god, like everyone, like like I point to the Detroit, the '80s Detroit Bad Boy Pistons, and it's like, yeah, like we know that's how we play. Like you have to own it. Like we're tough. We're gonna do this because this is how we know we can beat you, kind of thing. Just own it. Don't come crying when everyone says you're a dirty player and no one like like that was the one. That's why I laugh at the Kirby Joseph stuff, is just because it's like, oh yeah, we're you get in front of the mic and you do the whole we're mentally tougher, physically tougher than our opponent, blah blah blah. But when the accolades stuff or the voting or whatever, and you find out, oh, no one likes me, and you try to play victim there, it's like, get the hell out of here, like shut the fuck up. But anything more than that, we've been on for an hour and a half, and
Oh, and he
yeah.
needs to get rid of that stupid mouthpiece in his helmet because it just makes him look like an idiot.
I don't know why. I don't know why it's green. Like that feels like it should be a uniform infraction, because it's like it's not one of your team colors, kind of thing.
Right, but there's nothing they can do because it's a mouthpiece, and he does wear a mouthpiece without using it. So I don't think there's a color standard for mouthpieces.
Yeah, it's just one of those like what the hell are you doing kind of things. But whatever, to each their own. Let them do whatever. Yeah.
There's one other one that we can mention since we're on it, but because you were kind of having a fit with it, if I'm surprised you didn't mention Rutledge.
Oh, yeah. And like I said, that goes back to the identity of your coach. Yes, thank you for reminding me. I was fucking pissed when I saw it, because at first I thought Wyatt's injury was a concussion, because I was only looking at the center pushing him into the ground. I didn't see how he got there, but I was concerned he got concussed, because I was like, that's how like Brett Favre's career ended, is he got thrown to the ground like that and stuff. But Tate Ratledge, I get that you're playing injured. You're trying to tough, your team is this rough and tough Rumble team. You're wearing the neck collar. You're trying to like play through a stinger that you re-aggravated earlier in the game. But like Warren Brinson whipped your ass, and I get that he was your college teammate. There's extra on the line there because you guys practiced together for 4 years, all that kind of shit. But when you get beat, don't be a little shit, a little chicken shit, and like do some like gator roll throw thing to like make sure he doesn't get into the puck. And then to throw like, and I don't think he necessarily intended to throw him into Wyatt, but that's the kind of bullshit thing that can happen when you do dirty little shit like that. And like, I'm trying to think, would they have overlapped at Georgia? 21, 2, 3. I guess so. Maybe a year. Maybe if Ratledge was in college in 2021. I'm not sure how long he was at Georgia, but he was at least getting recruited there when Wyatt was there. And then obviously he played with Brinson. But like, everyone's gonna get beat in the NFL. Shit, Penei Sewell's gotten beat by Micah Parsons, and Sewell just kind of took it as like, fuck, I got smoked off the line of scrimmage by Parsons, kind of thing. We sit here complaining that Rashawn should do more, all that kind of stuff. But like, when you get beat, don't be a Dominic Raiola and be a little shit about it every time and stuff. Don't that like, yeah, that pissed me. And it's bad when nobody in Detroit is even trying to like defend it. Like, it's getting pointed out on like by different people and stuff, and no one's saying anything about it because they know, like, yeah, that was fucking dumb. And I know Spoon said that there might be some ligament stuff. I hope he's talking about ligaments in the ankle and not the knee, because things get really bad if Wyatt fucked up his ACL. Obviously, I hope that somehow he didn't break or tear anything. I don't think that's physiologically possible. If there has to be an injury, I hope he broke a bone in his leg as opposed to tear a ligament, because if he breaks a bone, he should be ready for training camp and be able to play the whole season. If he blew his knee out, now you've paid him his 5th-year option and you're stuck with him at that number, and he might not play for you at all next season. Like, it's a double whammy for the Packers where, like, it happens because of a dirty play. And then this goes back to the refereeing thing. That's clearly a trip or a hold or a something, and you don't call it. Like, there should have been a flag on that play for something. And I'm sure the refs will be like, oh, but Parsons got the sack. I hate that bullshit NBA thinking of like, oh, we were waiting to see if you made the shot before we called the foul. It's like, call it. Like, just fucking call it. Like, don't wishy-wash it. It's either, it's like my mom says about math. There shouldn't be a curve in math classes because math is right or wrong. It's not history, it's not English. There's no like interpretation. You're either correct or you didn't get it. And that's the same with penalty. And the whole like, oh, they can't flag everything. It's like, well, they should get the obvious ones, and they're not getting the obvious ones. This game is a blatant example of that. And so, yeah, like, Tate Ratledge, a hearty fuck you. I hope your gravy was cold and your cranberry sauce was sour.
According to Rappaport 2 days ago, it's a fractured ankle.
Yeah, you see, like, that would, like, obviously I wish he wasn't hurt, but I think that would be a better case scenario than like a blown out knee.
But yeah, I agree. I don't have anything else. You got anything else you want to throw out there?
Nope. Let's just put a bow on this because, like I said, we're approaching pretty long on this one, and yeah, let's just put a bow on it. You can get to editing, and we can both get on with this week and start getting ready for Chicago. But one note: we will be doing the game. We will be doing the post game live for this one because game was moved to prime time. Like we said, just put up or shut up time for the Packers. I tweeted it earlier today. Packers fans can make all the comments they want about whether the Bears are paper tigers, illegitimate, taking advantage of a 4th-place schedule. Be as it so, they're number 1 seed in the NFC right now because they have won the games. They've won the games they've won. I don't even want to say they've won the games they've supposed to because I don't think that's true either. But if Green Bay doesn't go and win on Sunday and then win again in 2 weeks, then they're better than you. And Green Bay fans, you can't say shit about that because your team didn't do what it was supposed to do. You wake up and you're 6.5-point favorites. I do think they're better than the Bears, but I've also thought and know that they're better than the Browns and they're better than the Panthers. This is the same scenario where they've come off like back-to-back, like important key wins in a season, and they've gone and just shit the bed in the following week or two kind of thing. Weeks 1 and 2, you open the season with resounding wins over Detroit and Washington. You shit the bed against the Browns. You put your whole ass out for the nation to see and tie with the Cowboys. Then you beat the Bengals. You escape with victory against a tougher Arizona team than their record suggests, and you have that resounding victory over the Steelers. And yeah, like you're 5-1-1. You're like, yes, like this is one of the best teams in the NFL. You shit the bed against the Panthers and the Eagles. Is this time around going to be different for this Packers team? You got to come out and show it. We're going to go over it in our opponent preview. But so for that case, check us out on the website, ohanapackers.org. I'm going to try to get back in the writing frame of mind at this point as we get into the stretch run. The shop, support us with merch. Joe said he was going to try to come up something with the skull joke, make fun of the Vikings. Support us there. Please follow the podcast on your social media accounts at Ohana_Packers, at Ohana_Packers on Twitter, at Ohana Packers Edition on Instagram. Search us on Facebook. If we can somehow get to 100 followers by Saturday, we can live stream on Facebook. Check us out on your favorite podcasting apps. Give us a like, hit a subscribe. And, Joe reaches out and puts out the feelers for ask us anythings or comment on us anythings. Please continue to send those in. We're going to get to those on our shows. We want to answer the topics that you're looking for, talk about the things that you got questions about. That's what we're here for. We're here to be your water cooler boys. And, we just want to be a part of your Packers discussion. But Packers are trying to move their way on up in the NFC playoff rankings. They did get some help today. And, like the way you got to look at it is like maybe the Bears are better than we thought they were, or maybe they gave us a big helpful hand by beating the Eagles and knocking them back behind us. And because if you take care of business against the Bears, you're in the driver's seat for the NFC North, and everything is there for you to take advantage of. But Green Bay has to do it themselves. You've lost your margin for help. You've lost your margin for error by losing the Panthers and Browns game. And it is time for this Packers team to truly have turned the corner and flip it into postseason prep mode. We're going to find out. This Thanksgiving game was a big step. We're going to see as they go to play the Bears this coming Sunday night. For Iowa Joe, I'm Mike. Go Pack Go, and aloha.
Green Bay hustle, grind it up. Hit the field, we don't bluff. Touchdown dances, feel the love. Jordan's got that MVP stuff. It's time for be up, let's go. Packers bringing that show. It's time for you know who wanna go.